Welcome to today's coverage of the Darwin Street March. I'm Kristy O'Brien. Joining me for our special Anzac coverage is Captain Nick Alexandrou. Welcome.
Good morning.
You've been serving in the Northern Territory for a little while, haven't you?
Yes. So I first got here in 2017, serving with the 5th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment. It's really enjoyable up here.
Last year, of course, we didn't have a traditional commemorative service because of COVID. What were you doing at that time, and what did it feel like to miss having the regular Anzac Day service?
That's right. So it was not a very conventional Anzac Day. I myself was in Alice Springs assisting with Operation COVID Assist. We participated in the Light Up the Dawn ceremony, and that I think is a respectful way to spend Anzac Day when we can't march. So it's good to be back with an actual march on, yeah.
And there is nothing like seeing our soldiers come out, our community come out. What do you think about on Anzac Day?
Well, Anzac Day is a really good opportunity to reflect on the more than 100,000 Australians who've laid down their lives for this country. But it's also, I think we should reflect on the really positive things that ADF has achieved over the past 120 years.
And of course, we are here today with Anzac Day with a great strong turnout, hopefully, for the street march, and you would usually be in it, but you'll be joining us, so thank you so much for doing that. Leading today's Anzac parade is the Northern Territory Police. Also, in recognition of their recent service in the Middle East, 2 Bushmaster armoured vehicles have been included at the front, and you'll see at the rear of this year's parade also. Also leading the parade is the Whaler Horse, an essential part of the Australian Light Horse regiments in World War I, of course, and they were popular and indeed bred because of their steady natures and easy gait.
There's plenty of authentic military attire that Willing Noble Ravelli, the horse, is actually wearing. So, as a gift from her father, it was originally owned by Army Major Charles Heidenham, who served in Kokoda in World War II.
A big crowd there today, Nick. It looks like we're getting those strong numbers. It's good to see, as we mentioned last year, we didn't have the service, so I'm hoping that the public have decided to kind of make up for it, come out in force today.
Absolutely. It's really good to see plenty of young people as well.
Flag waving. Of course, it's a bit of a cooler day for Darwin, which is always lovely, and making it slightly more pleasant to be out there watching this year's march.
Predictably nice and sunny as well. I hope the East Coast also gets a bit of sun today.
They'll be watching on enviously of ours, I'm sure. And the crowds have been gathering very early this morning. Indeed, many seem to have gone straight from the dawn service to the march. When we were out there a short time ago on the street, it was starting to fill up with veterans and families.
It's important to get a good front row seat, I suppose.
Yeah,
definitely. It's going to be a big crowd today.
Any standout Anzac marches or dawn services you've been involved in, Nick?
Well, I think my favourite one was in 2019. I was in Singleton, which is just in about 2 hours north of Sydney. And that was really special because it's quite a rural town, and everyone was showing out in massive numbers. So,
of course, Darwin is a defence town too, so it is expected that we'd have a good show today. Janette Wilson, of course, leading the horse. She's a very well-known horse trainer and indeed passionate supporter of the service every year.
These are our Bushmaster PMVs.
What are they used for, Nick?
Well, they're really useful in providing armoured mobility. So really, it just moves you from A to B.
They certainly look impressive.
Yeah.
And so we've got some of our veterans coming through now. This is the disabled veterans from all conflicts represented.
So from World War II to the present day, these servicemen have either become ill or invalided, or are too elderly and can't march the distance.
And we've got Mrs. Valma Van Hees, gunner from 61st 62nd Searchlight Battery. You were saying before to me, Nick, very important to our own Darwin history, that particular unit.
So searchlight batteries are used essentially to provide a bit of illumination at night so that we can successfully defend against air raids and the like. So thanks to her efforts, Darwin is essentially defended without a deliberate invasion of the mainland in World War II.
Which, of course, was when we saw most of our attacks in that form, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, we kept the fight a bit further north.
Now we've got the flag bearers there. These are the Anzac flags, representative, of course, of the armies that landed at Gallipoli under the command of the British Army.
So we have the Australian, New Zealand and
Union Jack.
UK flags there.
We've got the Darwin RSL coming up behind them. Of course, the Darwin RSL flag party is led by Steve Gloster, who was also in this, played a key role in this morning's dawn service. He's the president of the Darwin RSL, and we've also got Captain Lawrence Rudkins with him.
In 2018, the Darwin RSL actually suffered a major setback when their headquarters in Kavanagh Street was destroyed by fire.
Certainly, it was a huge blaze, and I know it was a big blow because it came at a time where they were really trying to regroup. I understand that premise is now being rebuilt from what I've seen, so hopefully they will be back, have a base soon to call home, yes. Now we've got the Darwin City Brass Band coming through. Musical director Jeff Coote. On the drum major is Ron Roberts. Current band was formed in 1981 and has 40 members, including their trainees. Always looking to recruit, so if you're keen to play an instrument, think about joining.
That brass band was actually started in 1895 in Darwin, so that's a really impressive organisation that's actually been around longer than the current iteration of the Australian Army, which is from 1901.
And here we have the RSL coming up now, led by Don Milford.
As you can see, they're not current serving personnel and aren't in uniform, but their medals are from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan. Very impressive turnout there.
Yeah, very, very strong. It must feel incredibly poignant to be marching, I think, and to have the respect of the public on these days. Particularly those who aren't serving anymore, to be reminded that their duty is not forgotten and that it is certainly honoured.
Absolutely. It's really impressive to see that even though they presumably haven't been in the Army for quite some time, they're keeping step really impressively. I hope the Army continues.
Let's hope they're not showing up by the
exactly,
Serving Day members.
Great, so this is the Ramie Association of the Northern Territory. Their banner is blue, yellow and red and has a rampart unicorn with lightning behind. The letters RAEME stands for Royal Australian Electrical and Mechanical Engineers.
And I didn't know their motto is "A little bear will fix it."
Indeed, those units are responsible for maintenance and keeping operational all equipment, including artillery, rifles and plant equipment, tanks, bulldozers, the lot.
Making sure nothing breaks, by the sounds, is a very key role.
Very valued indeed.
So the Royal Australian Navy Clearance Association, of course, another key unit.
Yes, clearance divers.
Particularly
very
World War II.
Navy unit. This is the RAF contingent. On the 31st of March 2021, the Royal Australian Air Force actually marked 100 years of service to Australia. More than 11,000 Royal Australian Air Force members have lost their lives and 350,000 have served in the force.
The Governor-General, David Hurley, presented the service with a new regimental flag or colour to mark the special anniversary on behalf of the Queen. And there we can see the Northern Territory's Administrator, Her Honour Vicky O'Halloran, with the Mayor, Lord Mayor Vatskalis. And I presume our Governor-General is there somewhere as well. He certainly was present at this year's dawn service.
As you can see, we have 3 ARH Tiger helicopters. We're really lucky to have a flyby today. They're flying from Darwin Harbour over the March. They're from the 1st Aviation Regiment of the Australian Army and they're based at Robertson Barracks, serving in the 1st Brigade.
Such an impressive sight. I've seen these guys around town a lot in the last few days. There must be a training exercise on. It's just very, very impressive to see that fly over your car on the highway, isn't it?
Right, here we have the Australian Army contingent.
This is, of course, your particular topic of knowledge, Nick.
Absolutely. So leading the Australian Army contingent is the commanding officer of the 1st Combat Signal Regiment, also known as 1 CSR, Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Minion. I can see plenty of...
There's some familiar faces in there, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of blokes from the 5th Battalion in there today.
Of course, such an extremely important unit up here. It's been a very long-serving unit in Darwin and definitely deployed to active duty from here. I know in other years we've been holding Anzac Days where these guys and girls, are about to go off to combat overseas. They've just returned. I remember times when we had lost soldiers and it was the first Anzac Day. So always such an particularly important unit for us locally.
A very poignant occasion, and here we have the United States Marines contingent. The MRF-D is currently just over 1,000 US personnel in Darwin. There's currently 370 of them in quarantine.
Wow.
So they will be missing Anzac Day, unfortunately.
I just love seeing the US Marines march in our Anzac Day commemorative service because it is so important. Obviously, we have that long-standing alliance. We're celebrating 10 years of that alliance, of that particular Marine alliance, and these guys have been coming to Darwin now, rotation after rotation, and contributing in the way of training and so forth. And it's starting to wrap up the parade there. It was very, very good turnout again. I understand numbers were slightly capped actually because of COVID restrictions, so still a very strong show of participants.
Great, this is the band of the 1st Brigade. The Australian Army Band was formed in 1988. It's one of the 11 Australian Army Band Corps units located in major cities around the country. The drum major is Rick Barnett, and the officer commanding is Captain Megan Dodds.
Got to be happy with that, haven't you? Very great showing. And here come the Girl Guides. Were you ever a scout, Nick?
Yes, actually.
Were you?
Yeah. Many years ago.
Mate, led you into your military career.
Really good organisation. I wouldn't say it's led me into my military career, but I know that hundreds of my friends were actually involved in that sort of organisation and set them up with some really good life skills.
Definitely. My brothers were in Scouts, or one was a very avid Scout member, actually.
Yeah, that sort of...
Very cute.
It sets a really early precedent of having that outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely.
And independence and setting yourself up for success as opposed to relying on your parents 24/7.
Absolutely. This is also all the artillery is so popular with the crowd. I think they get a real buzz out of seeing this.
Or the
so
heavy
close
machinery,
up.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, 5RAR is a mounted infantry, motorised infantry organisation. So that mounted infantry lineage goes all the way back to World War I and even the Boer War, where we'd use very similar tactics, essentially use our vehicles, whether it's a horse or in this case a Bushmaster PMV, to move close to an objective and then get off and perform an infantry attack.
I believe the jets are about to pass over. Listen to that deafening roar.
There's plenty of healthy rivalry
Really?
Between the Army and Air Force. But as soon as these jets tear overhead, we have nothing but respect.
Do you think they win that rivalry?
In this specific
category.
instance, exactly this moment, the RAF's dominance is pretty hard to come back against.
I've actually been in one of the simulators that they used to train, and it is absolutely terrifying how real that is, and how much you feel like you're actually in that aircraft.
Plenty of buttons.
And that does look like the end of this year's Anzac March. So let's take a moment to reflect on this day in 1915, when the first major military action fought by Australian and New Zealand forces during the First World War took place in Turkey.
At this time, on Sunday, the 25th of April 1915, Australian soldiers began to wade ashore on the Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. At home, weekend life continued, oblivious to the unfolding drama 12,500 kilometres away. On this day, we remember the sacrifices made by our servicemen and women at war, in conflicts and on peacekeeping operations, and especially those volunteers who took part in the landings on Gallipoli.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Lest we forget. In these unprecedented times, we stand apart, but we remain together, lest we forget.
Coomara, Munro. This story introduces the Air Force's. The new Queen's colour was presented to the RAF on March 31st by the Governor-General, David Hurley, on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen. As you'd imagine, it's a great honour to receive the Queen's colour, and many Air Force personnel put their hand up to be considered for the role. But only one person can have that honour, and on this occasion it was Flying Officer Coomara Munro. This story also introduces the Air Force's official elder, Uncle Harry Allie.
So my career started 18 years ago as an Air Force Defence Guard. Since then, I've had the privilege of serving in places such as Timor-Leste, Pakistan and the Middle East. And in 2018, I commissioned and appointed as a Personnel Capability Officer, or PCO. Now I'm here at RAF Base Richmond, AMTDU. Hey, Jess, how you going? Hey, what's happening? Air Mobility Training and Development Unit, or AMTDU. We have engineers, we have instructors, and we collaboratively work together to train our defence personnel in air load clearances, but also facilitate aerial delivery clearances as well on behalf of Air Mobility Group.
It was indeed a royal day at Point Cook with the visit of Her Majesty and His Royal Highness. Queen's colour was marched on.
The opportunity to be the Queen's colour bearer for this parade is a tremendous opportunity and a responsibility, because the Queen's colour embodies our service traditions, achievements and history. But I think on the day I will be very proud. I'll be reflecting on the sacrifices that many have made to join the Air Force, but also of the next 100 years, particularly as an Indigenous Australian as well. I met Uncle Harry Allie a few years ago now, and he's an extremely humble man, and I'm very honoured to be able to share this space with him and to continue sharing our story of Indigenous heritage.
I joined the Air Force in the 5th of January 1966. My role was in the equipment branch and involved with logistics, particularly warehousing, explosives ordnance, transport, that type of thing. And that gave me a lot of self-satisfaction to know that it was a career that I was progressing in, and also being an example to people that served under me as well. When I come into the Air Force, to hear the story of Lenny Waters to me was very inspiring. Len Waters was the first Aboriginal pilot in World War II. He was indeed a hero to us, where he came from and his background, and it wasn't an easy journey, and particularly to achieve what he did. It was indeed an honour to be invited to be the inaugural Indigenous Elder of the Air Force, to help and advise from my past service on the development and careers of Indigenous people that would wish to join the Royal Australian Air Force. I believe the Air Force has been at the forefront for embracing the enlistment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
I think it's important for Air Force to have an Indigenous elder, because that elder carries the stories and the traditions of their experience, but also it speaks to our cultural intelligence as an organisation and allows us to continue to grow in that space and encourage others to share and to carry on that legacy.
You're joining the Northern Territory's coverage of Anzac Day, and of course commemorations have been ongoing for the past 24 hours really. Hundreds gathered last night for Anzac Eve for a special acknowledgement of the city's Monument of Remembrance. 100 years ago the Darwin Cenotaph was built, and today for the first time the commemorations included an eternal flame and some very special guests.
A blessing and a smoking ceremony on Darwin's Esplanade as the city's long-awaited eternal flame is ceremonially lit on the eve of Anzac Day.
For 100 years we had the cenotaph, but no eternal flame. Every other city in Australia has got an eternal flame, burning always, to remind people of the sacrifice that people made, gave their lives overseas in various places around the world, and of course some of them here in Australia, in Darwin.
Representing eternal life, commemorating fallen soldiers, it overlooks Darwin Harbour, where in 1942 the Second World War reached Australian shores.
There was over 230-odd lives lost just out on that harbour there.
Unlike all other eternal flames across the country, this one here in Darwin is completely electronic, all because of how cyclone-prone the city is. The official opening of the flame coincided with the centenary of the city's cenotaph, a celebration fit for the Governor-General, a former commander of Darwin's own 1st Brigade. His Excellency will attend the dawn service tomorrow, where thousands are expected to gather to commemorate Anzac Day. Services in Darwin and Alice Springs will begin at 6 a.m.
Of course, Anzac Day commemorations coming to an end. We've seen the march just happen there on Nucky Street. What are you doing for the rest of the day, Nick?
Well, 3 things. Firstly, I'm going to meet up with my friends and have at least one beer.
At least.
And just trade stories. Secondly, I think I'm going to listen to that the song "And the Band Played Waltzing Matilda." That, I think, is the quintessential Anzac Day song, and I encourage everyone to have a listen to that. And lastly, some tu'a. That's for sure.
Yes, only day of the year it's legal, I
Absolutely.
understand. I was trying to explain it to someone yesterday, and I don't know if I did a good job, but I'm sure I understand a lot of different things get bet on the day.
Absolutely. Usually, people keep it to just small notes, but plenty can go. Plenty can be won or lost on completely unregulated tour.
You say when you catch up with friends and trade stories, what sort of stories are they? I mean, are you talking about experiences serving or?
Yeah, absolutely. So just the little things, really. Often it'll just be very small little moments that's been entertaining that you can just have a laugh at. Often it's to do with other people becoming enduring some sort of suffering or misfortune in a humorous way.
Thank you so much for joining us, Captain Nick Alexandrou, for this Anzac Day, and indeed all of you for this very special day on the Northern Territory's coverage. Until next year, lest we forget.